Hi friends! Today I thought I would discuss my recent reads and basically just roast everything that I've read this year. It's not too many books because the first half of the year I was just reading kind of for fun and wasn't thinking that I would necessarily be joining BookTube. It was just kind of the things that I read in my spare time, and not all of them are BookTube recommended, so some of them are a bit random. And not always that good. So, let's get into it. The first book I want to talk about is American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and very popular book, very popular author. I actually saw like the first few episodes of the TV show before I read this book, and I really enjoyed at least the first season of the TV show. So my flatmate actually has this book. This is his copy, and I saw it and I thought, well, let's read that. It's also a fairly hefty book, and at the time I didn't have internet, so I got through this fairly quickly. I would give this book about a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think that it's a really creative take on gods in general. I don't want to give spoilers for these books, but it's really fun. They changed some things in the TV show, which I think was actually a really good idea. Like, most of the changes that they made, I think, were good decisions. Sorry, I can't tell if my candle is burning. It's not burning my plant, is it? No. Okay. Fire hazard, sorry. Obviously, these are very popular books. Like, this author is super popular, so you might have heard about his other books. But I would honestly really recommend American Gods, especially if you enjoy mythology like I do. It's a really fun take on it. It's a really interesting read, and it's definitely a page turner. I really enjoyed this one. The next book I want to talk about is The Night Circus. I had actually seen this one, I think, recommended here and there, and it was when I went to the bookshop because I just needed some new reading material. Again, I didn't have internet at the time, so I was dying for a good book, and I just thought that the cover was really pretty. I sent Jamie a quick text going, "Have you read this? Is it good?" She said yes. So I picked it up. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think when I first read it, I was absolutely just in love with it. The writing style is really fun. The way that they describe the world is super interesting, and it is just a very different world. I really enjoy that it's kind of like magic in the real world, kind of incorporated. It has a really cute little love story in it that I really enjoyed. The only thing is, I'd say with this book, is that one of the plot lines I didn't really care about. Like, when I got to certain chapters following this certain character, I just kind of wanted to skip them. I wanted to go back to the main characters that you've been with from the beginning of the book. Instead, I found their story much more interesting, but it was still a really good read, and I really enjoyed it. If you enjoy kind of fun fantasy magic, but I don't know, I don't actually know if I call it exactly fantasy. It's more like magic in the real world, more dealing with magicians and that kind of mystical, enchanting kind of vibe, which I just think is, I don't know, it's such a good escape, you know? This was such a dreamy book. It was really dreamy and really well written, and I really enjoyed it. I have to mention the Poppy War series. This is the second book. This is the Dragon Republic, but I borrowed the Poppy War, the first book in the series, from Jamie, and I absolutely loved it. It is a fantasy set in like a fantasy China, and it is based off of Chinese history, and I think that is incredible. I'm almost finished The Burning God at the moment, which is the third book in this series. And I can't recommend these enough, honestly. It is so rare that you get fantasy books that are not from a Western perspective, that aren't like this medieval England type world. And I love that this is based off of Asian history, and it deals with shamanism, which is something that you don't usually get. Usually it's like wizards and stuff, but the fact that it's like a whole different pantheon, a whole different bunch of gods and shamans, and the military writing in this is very heavy, but the writer does a fantastic job of going through it and making it really interesting and quite easy to digest, especially like me. I don't know that much about war. I didn't take a lot of war history classes or anything, and I absolutely chewed through these books. I love them. I can't wait to finish The Burning God. I am very sure that I am going to cry. It's going to end in tears, but this is such a good series and more people need to read it. I feel like I talk about these books all the time. Maybe not on BookTube necessarily yet, but I talk about them all the time. I absolutely love this series, and I don't think that it gets enough attention. Just my 2 cents. Check it out if you're looking for a little bit of variety in your fantasy genre. Or if you like military stuff, like if you're more interested in heavy war stories, these are very grueling, and I think that makes it so much more real than other fantasies that have wars in them. Star rating for the Poppy War series so far would probably be 4.5 stars out of 5. Honestly, the main character, for me personally, is a little bit hard to relate to. She is very brash and abrasive and full of rage and makes a lot of, questionable decisions, but I think that all makes sense for her character. I just don't know if she's the character for me personally, but I do love the series and I think that it is a fantastic job. And I feel so bad saying that because I know that she's like Jamie's favorite character. But obviously we're 2 very different people, so that's totally okay. I'm so sorry if the light is changing. I'm losing light right now, and so I'm trying to get through this really quickly because I've been meaning to film this forever. Now we have to talk about the bad, and that would be this book, The Evening and the Morning. This is a historical fiction. I've heard that this writer is actually a very popular historical fiction author. I believe this is a prequel to, I think it's called Pillars of the Earth, which is a very popular historical fiction. I have not read Pillars of the Earth. I picked this up because my flatmate said that Pillars of the Earth was really good, and he wanted to read the prequel, but I got to it first. And honestly, this is a big fuck off book. I read this in about 3 days, and I give it 2 stars. And honestly, the 2-star rating is probably generous. Here's the thing with this historical fiction. It takes place in actually what is probably my favorite historical period too. It's kind of the time period in England where they have tentative dealings with the Normans in France, and a lot of the Norsemen, the Vikings, have kind of settled within England, and they're trying to set up the church, and there's a lot of corruption. It follows the story of a random farmhand, a priest, and the daughter of a Norman noble man. Yeah. Here's the problem with this book. Bad things happen. A lot of bad things happen to these main characters who are all really, really good people. But the main female character has it so much worse, and just all the women in this book suffer tremendously, and the author does try to like give them a happy ending, but to me their happy endings seemed so much less considering all the pain and the tragedy that they had suffered. Women are not treated good in this time period. I know that's historical fact, but this is a historical fiction. You do not need to make your characters suffer needlessly. This book made me really, really sad for like a while afterwards, because I couldn't stop thinking about how terribly all the women in these books were treated. I don't know, I don't want to say exactly what happens, but you can kind of get it. Women have no rights. Their husbands do terrible things to them. Everyone else does terrible things to them. There's no one to protect them. And it's just really depressing for women. And I don't think the fact that it is historical gives that a pass. Again, it's still fiction. You don't have to, I don't know, and like, spoilers, but like the happy ending for the woman is that, oh wow, she gets to marry for love after all of her kids have been taken away, after all of this horrible stuff has been happening to her, after she's been kidnapped and kept prisoner. And it's like, oh no, the guy had to deal with some dickhead boss. I don't know. This book, man, I've had so much to say about it for so long. Don't read it. The reason why I went through it so quickly is because the writing is really good. Like, the writing makes it very easy to turn pages and just read a bunch at a time. And I think I will give the author credit for that. The author is clearly very talented. I just wish it was done differently. I really do. So sorry, this is not it. This is not it for me. However, ending on a positive note, I must mention my very favorite book that I have read this year so far, which is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I love a revenge story, and this one was just done so beautifully. I know some people said that this was like fantasy. I wouldn't call this fantasy personally. I would call it like, it's more sci-fi. It's more about people with powers rather than people with magic and things like that. I love it. It is so good. I'm actually going to go through and annotate it. I'm being a bit funny about it. I want to annotate it all in like black and red, like the aesthetic of the book. 5 stars for this one. I don't want to tell you anything because I went into it completely blind and I am just obsessed. Just trust me on this one. Read it. It is dark, it is gritty, it is fantastic. The characters are awesome. I am obsessed. I also have got, oh, it's not here. I've got the second book and I can't wait to read that as well. Oh, so I'm losing light because I filmed this too late in the day, but I did want to give some honorable mentions, which is, of course, to Song of Achilles. That 5 out of 5 stars for me. But I feel like everyone's talking about Song of Achilles. And of course, 6 of Crows. I'm halfway through Crooked Kingdom right now, and 6 of Crows I would give a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think it was originally 5 stars, but I can see that there are some shortcomings. But I love the story and I love the characters. I want to read more heists. They're so much fun. And of course, Into the Wild. 5 out of 5 stars. Into the Wild by Erin Hunter, Warriors series. Duh. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining me on my quick little review of the books that I read in the first half of the year. I can't wait to read more and share more thoughts. Please tell me if you've read any of these books. I want to have a little discussion with people about it in the comments. That would mean the world to me. That's why I want to do BookTube, because I just want to hear everyone else's thoughts, because I could be wrong. Some people might have hated these that I loved, and that's okay. Let's talk. Let's discuss it. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for being awesome. I'll see you again very soon. Mwah!